In today's video, we will be taking a look at this £175 gaming PC that I've recently put together, and we'll see what sort of performance this little thing can do. So yeah guys, I've basically just put this together mainly because it was a little bit of a more difficult build, so I didn't really want to record it because it was just going to take a bit more time, a bit more faff, so I'd rather just not do the actual recording of the build for this one, because basically the reason is that the cable management in this case is absolutely atrocious. So this is the Gamdias Aura GC7. I think you've seen this on the channel before. It was probably a month or two ago now, I can't remember exactly, but we've had this on the channel, and basically what I was saying is the cable management in the back is really poor with this case. So it is what it is, but we have got a nice little system for 175, and we have done okay, and we have built in it. So let's just sort of go, first of all we'll do a parts overview, and then I'll talk about the case a little bit more, and then right at the end we'll do the benchmarks to see what this little PC can do. So the parts that we have here are quite older now, you know, probably like over 5 years, some of them might even be over 10 years actually, but actually still holding up not too bad. So we have a motherboard here of the ASRock Z77 Extreme 4, I think it is. Yep, which, if you don't know, is the Z77 chipset is the third gen i5s or i7 generations from Intel, obviously. So yeah, that's pretty old nowadays, isn't it? But it's still not too bad. And our CPU under this massive heatsink that we've got here, massive CPU fan heatsink, is the i5 3570K. So actually a 4-core 4-thread processor, which kind of just about holds up nowadays, but it is right on the very edge now. It's kind of done, unfortunately. Now yes, upgrading this to an i7 3770 would be ideal, and you know, in honesty, I probably should, but I wanted to keep the cost down. 175 is not much money. It's an extra £20 to buy the i7 3770, so I just thought we want to keep costs down as much as possible, obviously, because we are going to flip this as well. So we need to keep costs down to the very lowest we can in order to make as much profit as we can, obviously, guys. That's the aim of the game, isn't it? So yeah, our 3570K, okay for you know, for sort of 1080p low gaming, it's going to be okay. It's just about going to hold up. And we have 16GB of DDR4 RAM, if you can see that there. Now you'll probably notice, if you're sort of more PC savvy or tech savvy, you'll probably notice that I put them in slots 3 and slots 4, which technically you're not supposed to do, because it's supposed to be slots 2 and 4, which you use if you're only having 2 sticks. Now, I've had a bit of an issue with this motherboard. Basically, it's just not quite functioning with slots 1 and 2 for some reason. I don't know whether it's a CPU problem, and I don't know if it's maybe a motherboard problem. But basically, this motherboard bundle that I got, it was actually only £30 as well. So it was CPU, cooler, RAM, and motherboard for only £30, which is an absolute bargain. So that's why I've obviously got it. Now, it was caked in dust, so I've tried to clean it out as best I can. Unfortunately, for some reason, those 2 slots just don't work. I don't know why. So we're having to run it in single channel, our DDR3 1600 MHz. But I've done all the testing on it. I've done all the stress testing and the games test, and it works fine in those 2 slots. So I'm just going to run with it, to be honest, guys. I haven't really got the time to mess around with it any further, so I'm just going to run with it. Maybe if I changed out the CPU again, put an i7 there, it might behave a bit more, and it might have actually worked, but again, we won't know. And unfortunately, I didn't have the extra cash, and I didn't really want to spend any more, because I was obviously keeping the budget down, so it is what it is there. But anyway, let's move on. The graphics card is actually pretty decent. You know, some people would say it's a bit old, but I think it's still decent. It's a GTX 1060. It's the 3GB version. Now obviously, if you are going to buy the 1060, I would advise going up to the 6GB version. But again, I was on a very tight budget, and I only paid £55 for that graphics card, which for a 3GB graphics card isn't too bad, because it is Nvidia as well, and that's the big thing. Now a lot of people will say, why aren't you buying the RX 570 or maybe something off AliExpress or something like that for quite cheap, because you can actually pay less than £55 for an RX 570 now. But the problem is that I'm flipping these PCs, and as soon as you put an AMD graphics card in, people just don't care. People just don't want it, and when it's got an NVIDIA graphics card, it sells quick. So we're just going to have to go with NVIDIA. We haven't got a choice there, really, guys. You know, we want to sell it quick. We want to move it on. So NVIDIA is the choice there, and I think the 1060 is still quite, it's still quite regarded as an okay 1080p sort of low graphics card, and it's still going to get the job done. So, obviously, once we go into more heavy demanding titles and more modern titles, it's not gonna hold up. But for our older titles, which is what we're aiming this PC for, it's gonna be fun. So yeah, then I've just stuck a 1TB SSD in, which is my own personal one. But when I sell this PC, I'll put a 512GB SSD in there, which will be a 2.5-inch one, because obviously we don't have M.2 support here. We're not that modern, are we, guys? So then, as I said, our Gamdias case. We've also got a PSU, 450-watt PSU from Be Quiet, which is pretty solid. Be Quiet's a good brand, and that's great. So yeah, I think that's all the sort of parts. As I said, this is the problem now. So we'll move on to the case, and basically, let's just take off this side panel. As you can see, there's been quite a few sort of issues with this, and I've had to kind of play around with it a little bit. So yeah, as you can see, cable management is awful in this case. And that's probably an understatement, if I'm being honest. I mean, it is just like, just avoid this case sort of thing. That's what I would say. So, just don't even bother with it. But if you have bothered with it and you just want to get some support, of how you potentially could cable manage it, then you have kind of found the right video. But yeah, just don't buy this case, guys. But anyway, let's talk about how bad it is. So we've just about, thankfully, we've had a EPS cable for our CPU power. Is actually a very thin cable, so that's actually worked out okay for us on this power supply, because basically we wouldn't have fitted anything thicker. If we had a thick cable there, that wouldn't have even fitted, and we wouldn't have been able to get the side panel on. So yeah, I mean, again, that's just terrible, really. But anyway, I mean, it literally is like, hardly anything. Maybe like 1 centimeter room, like behind the tray. I mean, it's awful. Now there is a little bit more on the side here in this sort of cutout, and I did try and route this big thick 24-pin cable, which you won't quite see there, but basically I tried to route it on this side, but then when I went to go and put the side panel on, it was no bueno. It wasn't going on. It was just blocking, and I was like, I'm not comfortable with putting that much pressure on the rear panel to actually put it on. I wasn't comfortable with that, and I thought, no. What we'll do is we'll take a little bit of a drastic action, but it has worked. So basically the big 24-pin, if you can see that, the big 24-pin cable, again trying to show you exactly, is difficult here with the camera, but basically it's routed up through this kind of little slot at the bottom there, and then it's just routed up into the inside of the case rather than the back of the case. So cable management wise, if you can see that, hopefully, cable management wise, it doesn't look good, but it's functional, and that's really all we need, isn't it, guys? So yeah, that is what it is. I mean, the graphics card was actually fine fitting that in. There is a fair amount of space for the graphics card, to be fair, and that's okay. And there's enough of a gap there and what have you. And our CPU cooler has just about fitted in. It's very, very tight. I think it's about a millimeter of clearance there until the actual glass panel, which, well, when I put that glass panel back, so we have just about cleared the CPU cooler as well. It's from Gelid or something, Gelid. I've never seen this one before, but it came with the motherboard bundle, so I was going to go with it, and it performs fine. I mean, our CPU stays under 50 degrees centigrade, even at 100% usage, so it's doing perfectly fine. So yes, and then the Molex kind of disaster, if you can see that on the camera, hopefully. I'll just put that on my hand there so you might be able to see it better, but yeah, again, I don't really like this Molex train going on, but it is what it is, and it's one of those things with cheap cases that you're going to get, isn't it? So yeah, it's okay. I mean, at least we have routed the Molex all the way to the bottom. Again, I wouldn't have been able to put the Molex like around here or anything. I had to put it into the actual sort of hard drive, sort of caddy bay area, to slot that out of the way. So again, not great. And even these little cables like the USB, the front panel USB cables, again, they're a little bit big and they're a little bit. They stand out a little bit from the case, but when you do put the side panel back on, it does fit on. So the main thing is it's working, it's functional. The power supply isn't that bad. It's just obviously unfortunately the 24-pin main CPU cable, main motherboard cable for our power supply was thick. So we've not done too well there. But anyway, let's. I think we've kind of talked about that enough and talked about the case enough, but. Let's just see how our little build here does, and let's see the performance benchmarks then. So here we go for the benchmarks. So we got 3 games, so it's not too much of a selection, but I thought, you know, I haven't really got much time to turn this around, so I thought we'll just do 3 games and then we'll move on. So we've got GTA 5, we've got Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and we've got Cyberpunk 2077. And I will put the in-game footage over me here, so you can see that. Now, GTA 5, 1080p low, an average of 91, a minimum of 59, and a maximum of 127. And at 1080p medium, an average of 79, a minimum of 53, and a maximum of 102. Now, as we can see here, 1080p medium is perfectly fine with GTA 5. I know a lot of people will say GTA 5 is like a 10-year-old game now, and it is, but yeah, even at 1080p medium, we're actually running this game fine. And there was a few drops and stuff, and our i5 was struggling. It was like 100% usage all the time, but we've got through it, and we've got actually decent results there from our GTX 1060 3GB. So you know, it's not bad. Moving on to the Shadow of the Tomb Raider. 1080p low, average of 83, a minimum of 60, and a maximum of 179. And at 1080p medium, an average of 62, a minimum of 48, and a maximum of 142. So again, even at 1080p medium, we're getting an average of 62 FPS there. So again, for this little PC that's only cost us £175, we've got some performance here, really. It's not bad, you know. It obviously could be better. I'm not going to deny, you know, it's not fantastic performance, but £175 is not a lot of money nowadays, and we've got a nice system here. I still think, and it is performing. You know, 60 FPS at 1080p medium on Shadow of the Tomb Raider. That's still not bad, really, in my book, anyway. Now, yes, we are going to move on to Cyberpunk 2077, and this is where we start to see the problems with potentially only going with an i5. This is where I think an i7 would just give us that extra little bit of performance from our graphics card, and maybe just get a little bit more out of our system. But anyway, let's go with Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p low, an average of 49, a minimum of 37, and a maximum of 67. And at 1080p medium, we have an average of 44, a minimum of 31, and a maximum of 58. Yeah, a little bit disappointing. Even at 1080p low, we're not hitting 60 FPS average. But Cyberpunk 2077 is a demanding game, and to be fair to this little system, if you did play with FSR a little bit, and you were prepared to maybe go to like performance settings in FSR, or maybe even ultra performance settings, I reckon you could probably get to that 60 FPS average at 1080p low if you really wanted to. So, you know, you're gonna have to take some graphical downgrades, obviously, but that's still not bad, I think, in my book. I mean, this is, like I said, only £175 for a PC, which is no money nowadays. So you're not getting, you know, this is not bad. I think this is a decent deal, and it's got obviously the tempered glass I put on here. It's got the PSU shroud. It's got the free RGB fans, although they are fixed, and they are a fixed speed as well because they're Molex, which is not great. But this is still a modern looking PC, which is probably going to be easy to flip. I'm going to aim for £300, a little bit optimistic. I think realistically £250 is the price for this PC, which I'm pretty sure I'll get within a week or two, because there is a demand. Certainly at the moment now, it's starting to pick up a little bit, not much, but starting to pick up a little bit now with PCs, I find, and people are starting to get a little bit more money now. Obviously, we're right at the end of the month now as well, or potentially the start of July, so that might help for the money with people getting paid, obviously. So that might help sell the PC as well, because people got a little bit of extra cash in their pocket. So yeah, overall, I think we've done all right here. Personally, the build was a little bit hard, and admittedly, I didn't want to film it like I said, because it was just going to be awkward to film, and I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I just want to take my time, put it together, and then just show you guys basically. But I am planning when we get we've got far better PC cases coming up on the channel, and we're going to do some builds with those far better ones, and I will record those because they'll be a lot easier and simple. I'll be able to do the PC build within half an hour easy. This one took me about 2 hours actually, which for me as an experienced builder, that's actually quite a long time. I have to admit, I've done loads of PC builds, and that shows how bad this case really is for cable management. No, it shouldn't have taken me anywhere near that time really, but when you're having to play around with the cables and you're having to play around with where you're putting the components and everything, it's not great. Even the SSD, I've literally just put it in the actual in the little hard drive sort of caddy area, and I haven't even screwed it in or anything yet, but I will do that when obviously I sell it on, and I'll put the new SSD in, which I have. But there's not really a lot of SSD space either, so again, there's a few areas you can put them around the PSU shroud, but I don't like this I don't like this case at all, if I'm being honest with you. It's a real thumbs down from me. Do not get this Gamdias or GC7 it was, yeah. So it's a shame, because actually it does look very nice, it does look very modern, and it was very cheap. I think I only paid £35 for it. So if it would have ticked all those boxes and we would have had the cable management as well, I would have said fine, but no, it's a no from me, unfortunately. But overall, we've got a good PC out of it eventually. I won't buy this case again, but we'll flip it on. I'm quite confident this will flip, this will sell, and we'll move on, and we'll get more PC builds for you guys, because that's kind of what I'm more focusing on now, is the PC builds. Personally, I think that's kind of where people on my channel are kind of looking at, and what people are wanting. So we will try and get more on the channel, and it will be very budget orientated. Probably £300, £400 PCs at most, I would say. Maybe even the odd 200, 250 sort of PCs as well. And possibly even like the cheap ones like this, like the 175 and the 150s, I might even do as well. But we'll see what we can get, and we'll see what we've got to play with our money, basically. And just see where we go, really. So obviously, if you want to see future videos, please like this video, and then obviously subscribe so you can see my future videos. Let me know down below in the comment section what you think of this PC build, and what potentially you could do, and maybe if you've got any fixes for that RAM issue that I was talking about, then let me know as well. That'd be interesting to hear. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.